What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and welcome back to Geek Culture Explained. Meet Steve the Plant. He's going to be joining us here for a little while, and rumors abound that Henry Cavill is joining the MCU, that supposedly Marvel Studios is courting this guy in order to give him some unspecified role. So let's start with the cameo type character. This is a guy by the name of Zoran, although those of you guys who are familiar with Marvel Comics may know him as Sun God. Now, if you're not familiar with this guy, he's actually a really cool character. So the way this played out is during Jonathan Hickman's Avengers and New Avengers, which I absolutely love. Basically, you had the Illuminati, you had the incursions, worlds colliding, different things like that. And so what the Illuminati had done is they had formed something called the Bridge in order to figure out how other universes were faring against the incursions. In one particular universe, they had actually defeated or fended off an incursion successfully without using any kind of crazy devices or anything like that, or at least that seemed to be the case. This led to the Illuminati investigating and coming across what was called the Great Society. And what you ended up learning here is that on Earth, in this alternate reality, you had a group called the Archetypes of Justice, which was basically a coming together of the different superheroes that you're the most familiar with. Wolverine and different characters like that, albeit just kind of a different name. But they tried to defend the Earth against the Kree and the Skrulls, and they were ultimately killed. And so what this did is it led to Zoran and what was essentially the Squadron Supreme, albeit by a different name, banding together and then defeating the Kree and the Skrulls, and then once the incursion started, successfully fending off an incursion, which was a pretty big deal. Now, we ended up learning later on that they used what was called the Prisms of Foreverglass. Basically, it was their universe's version of the Infinity Gauntlet, which of course, in every reality, whenever an incursion started and anybody tried to use the Infinity Gauntlet in their universe to defeat that incursion, the Infinity Stones were destroyed in some capacity. It was basically Marvel's way of getting rid of the Infinity Gauntlet as a MacGuffin to essentially save the day. And so what ended up happening is when the Illuminati showed up here, they fought against the Great Society, and ultimately they ended up winning when Doctor Strange summoned this just eldritch demon from another dimension. This led to basically the death of the Great Society, and then of course they ended up detonating an antimatter bomb, blew up the world, and then left. But if we move away from Sun God basically being a cameo character that Henry Cavill could play in the MCU, we move into a character that he could play for the long term, which I've been advocating for quite some time, and that is Marcus Milton of Earth 13034, also known as Hyperion. Now, Hyperion is the closest you get to a consistently appearing character in Marvel Comics that's their version of Superman. Technically, they have a few characters like that, right? You have Hyperion, you've got the Sentry Robert Reynolds, you've also got Adam Brashear, the Blue Marvel, but Hyperion is pretty much the closest. And the reason why is because even his origin story, at least that version of Marcus Milton, because there's been different versions of Hyperion that have appeared over the years in Marvel, the origin story of that version of Hyperion was almost identical to Superman's, that he came from a world which was home to Eternals in an alternate reality, and that when his world in that alternate reality was basically destroyed, he was sent to that alternate reality's Earth. He landed there and he was taught, or at least raised by a guy named Father, who taught him like a moral compass, what it meant to be a good guy, different things like that. That story directly mirrors Superman, right? The explosion of Krypton, being sent to Earth, raised by Jonathan and Martha Kent, and taught what it means to be a human being that just screws up all the time. And so what ended up happening here is that Hyperion was basically the last survivor, really the last survivor of the universe when an incursion started. And there was a point in this comic, to show you how powerful this guy was, there was a point in this story when he held two universes apart. It was only for a few moments, but he had enough power to hold universes apart from each other. Now, ultimately those universes collided, but he still couldn't be destroyed. And in fact, he just sat in this giant white vacant space that used to be his universe. Ultimately, he was pulled out of that space by a group called Advanced Idea Mechanics, and then he was brought to the main Marvel Universe, ultimately rescued by the Avengers, and then joined the team. Now, the reason why these two characters are the most viable options for Henry Cavill to play, even though there's hundreds, if not thousands of possibilities for characters that they simply haven't introduced yet, the reason why this is the most viable is twofold. The first is because it's just a great way for Marvel Studios to have Henry Cavill continue to play a Superman type character and just kind of jab at Warner Brothers and just be like, we can make a Superman better than you can. But the other reason, and really the most most serious reason, if we're kind of getting down to business here, is that the stage has been set for this. The stage has been set for both of these guys to appear in some form or fashion. The incursions are already a thing that's going on, right? We know that that's already taking place across the multiverse. We know the Illuminati have their explanation for why the incursions are happening, but we don't even know if the Illuminati are right about their estimation for why the incursions are happening. This exact same scenario unfolded in Hickman's Avengers and New Avengers. Everybody thought they knew what was going on until it turned out they didn't. Then you learned about the Ivory Kings, right? The White Lords of Wild Space, basically the Beyonders, who were the ones that were behind it all, or at least partly. The other part was Doctor Doom, which was amazing. But the big thing here is that if we want to invoke the incursions, which we are already aware of, you can literally just do the story of Marcus Milton from Earth 13034 as a part of an existing movie, possibly its own film, and then have him rolled into the MCU, and he becomes part of whatever the Avengers roster is going to be that goes into Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars, and he's now a part of the multiversal team. You could also do the same thing with Sun God, right? Just say that, like, instead of getting a whole great big huge origin story, he's just a superhero that fights alongside another team that exists on Earth in an alternate reality, and that's basically all you get. Another reason why the stage is set for this is because Marvel Studios is looking for what is in effect the roster for the next Avengers team. Some of the characters we've already seen, some of them have been teased, like She-Hulk. I don't know that she's actually going to be a long-standing member. The reality, I think, here is that while the show is interesting, reception to her character is lukewarm at best, so I don't know if people are really chomping at the bit and are excited at the idea that, like, She-Hulk's going to become part of the Avengers. I'm sure somebody is, but the thing about this is that it allows the MCU to expand on their existing roster and take characters that we're already the most familiar with, the Incredible Hulk, Thor, different characters like that, and add someone to them or potentially replace that character with someone like Henry Cavill. Because the reality here is, I just don't see Henry Cavill as being a temporary character. I don't see him being a short-term guy. I see him being a long-term guy. So having said that, let me know what you guys think down in the comments section. Let me know what you think this role will be for Henry Cavill. Do you think it'll be either one of these? Do you have your own guesses on who you think Henry Cavill is going to play? And if you do, make sure you post those below. Thank you all for watching, and I will catch you all later. Peace.